Alrighty, welcome back, boys and girls. It's your main mathematician coming to you live from First Block. And in this video, what we're going to do is this. We're just going to go through this box plot very simply and be able to use those ideas from those medians that we had from before. So, it says this. It says box plot, a box and whisker plot organizes data values into 4 main groups. And you kind of saw that yesterday when we were doing those medians. We ended up splitting it down the middle in half, and then we cut those halves into quarters. So that means we order the data, or data, depending on your location on the world, into lower and upper halves, and we split that using that median. So again, if you need to pair yourself with those notes, those median notes from yesterday, please do. Because we said the median of the lower half, we can also say that's the lower, we can say that's the lower quartile. And the word quartile is very similar to the word quarter. Again, you can think of a quarter as 1/4 of a dollar. A quartile is 1/4 of this entire box. So then the median of the upper half, we can call that the upper quartile. And instead of having to freak out and worry about these words, again, you can think of these whiskers or these extremities. Does anyone know what an extremity is? Like when you reference your hands and toes, and feet. Yes, and your fingers too. Those are your extremities. So that's the very end points of your body. Also, it works too here. Again, the extremes are the min and max, just like we had yesterday. We can call the lower quartile, we can say that's just a Q1. Take a large leap of faith. What do you guys think this one is going to be? Q2. And take one more hop.
Q3.
Yep, that's going to be that Q3. So then, those are going to be those 5 numbers that you need. So we can call these the 5 critical numbers. So if you guys can split those values right down the middle using that median, from that middle, again, you can say, all right, right in the middle of that is the Q1, or that median of the lower half. We have the median of the upper half, our smallest value, and our greatest value. All right. Guys, okay so far? I hope so. All right, so now it says, how do you make a box whisker plot? So it says, you plot the heights of 7 family members, and it has those values there. So just like yesterday, that very first step, you want to make sure that you can list them from least to greatest. So let's put that 34. Again, as you use a number, you can go ahead and cross it out. So we say 34, we say 46, we say 54. What's next? 62. Again, just one at a time, you can use those values for yourself. And then we can put some labels with them. All right. And if you notice, it kind of already has them broken apart there. So you're saying, all right, right in the middle, that's going to be our Q2, which is also just called our median. Again, that's that first value that you want to be able to see. So we have that in there. Again, that splits it in half. That splits the entire set in half. So we're going to have the lower. We're going to have that lower half. That lower half. And we have our upper half. And that's just referring to those 3 numbers that are grouped together. So again, this is going to be our lower half, and this is going to be our upper half. Doing okay so far? I know it might seem like a lot, but I can assure you it's just putting numbers in a line, figuring out what's in the middle. All right, so now it has an arrow. If we have our lower half, what's going to be right in that middle? What can we call this? Sure, our Q1, which is our lower quartile. And then that means on the upper half, that right side, that's going to be our upper quartile, which is also called that Q3. Again, you can use either of those labels for yourself, as long as you are sticking to those labels. All right, so now, this is where I lost some people last year, but it is okay. I learned some good strategies from those mistakes made. And let's try this out. So now it says plot the median, the quartiles, the max, and the min. So usually what I do is I put some dots on I put those dots below that number line. So let's say this. If we have our min, again, our min is going to be that lowest value. So that's going to be 34. And so if you notice, each of those dash marks, they're going by 2. So we're going to say, all right, that's 32. This is going to be 34. So I'm going to say that little dot right there below 34 is going to be our min. The 46, that's our Q1. So we go 42, 44, 46. And we say that's our Q1. So let me actually just put those dots down first, and then I can put the numbers in a second. Our median, we said, is 62. Our upper quartile is 70. And our extreme, or our max, is 75. So you have those dots in there first. Again, you can label them here in a second. And it says we can draw a line from the lower to the upper. So usually what I do is this. Anytime you have a quartile, meaning any of those three medians, I usually just draw a vertical line. So I'm just going to piece together our box. So please do see how I'm doing that. Again, I had Q1, Q2, and Q3. I draw a vertical line, and now this helps us form that box that we need. So if you need to, you can use the back of the calculator to draw a straight line, but usually I kind of form my box like that. It doesn't have to be perfect. As long as you are on those values, you are good. So now we need to make sure our whiskers are attached to the rest of our box plot, and so we draw those lines like so. You can label it there as well now, so that way you have the space to see it. I can assure you it is super simple. You're drawing lines on those values. So it's, again, draw a vertical line through that median, and then we had from the box to the max and from the box to the min. Again, we'll get a little bit of practice with this moving forward, but I can still promise you it's not too bad. So again, you're just drawing vertical lines on the medians. You're putting dots on those 5 critical numbers, and then you kind of just box it in like that. All right, so now if you move to the back, it will say this. It will say if you can interpret, meaning we're just going to kind of get some clues or get some ideas from this box and whisker plot. So it says it separates it 4 main groups. There's 2 parts of the box and the 2 whiskers. Each part contains approximately the same number of data values. So let's take a huge guess. Actually, let's just take a reasonable guess. If you have a quarter of something, what would be that percent? Very good. It'd be 25% of the data. So, for example, if I said, all right, 25% of you will pass this class. That's only a little bit, right? But normally we would have at least 75%. So we're saying each of these sections, because there are 4, even though they look larger, I can assure you they have the same number of people. So I could say, all right, if we have, for example, if we have 16 people, this would be 4 people, this would be 4 people, this would be 4 people, and this would be 4 people. Again, each section in here represents about 25% of that data. That is why we break these into 4 sections, because when you add 25% up 4 times, you will get your total of 100. So again, we have our max, or excuse me, we have our min, our Q1, our Q2, our Q3, and our max. So it's min, Q1, Q2, Q3, max. And you can also use that reference to those vocab sheets that you have as well for this unit. You know the range of the data. It uses the max minus the min. So if you want to write on the side here, you can say the range, that's just equal to the max minus the min. And you've had that before, I believe in 5th or 6th grade, depending on where you're at. But we want to go use those ideas. So we're saying, okay, it's that endpoint minus this endpoint, that kind of gives us our range. Now, if you want to say the interquartile range, that's just talking about the Q3. So we're going to say this is the Q3 minus that Q1. So we're talking about this box, essentially. We're talking about that range. So, for example, if you would say something like this, you could say, well, if this is about 42 and our Q1 is about 8, that would make our interquartile range, or our IQR, that would be about what? 34. So it's talking about these values in the box. And we can kind of get a solid example using this average temperature example in the bottom here. All right. So it says the box plots below show the average high temperatures in degrees Fahrenheit. Unfortunately, not Celsius, but that's okay. For each month in Atlanta, Georgia, and Orlando, Florida. Anyone ever been to those places before? Maybe next year. All right. So now it shows you, and you can kind of see as well, you're comparing these box plots. So we're saying Atlanta is going to be using this first box plot, and Orlando is going to be using the second box plot. And that kind of makes sense too, right? Because Atlanta's a little bit more north. You're going to have some lower temperatures, where Orlando is closer to the equator, so we're going to say that is going to be a little bit warmer normally. So I can actually maybe do a little bit of highlighting here for ourselves. So let's say this. It says how many months. Let me scroll up a little bit. It says how many months in Atlanta's average high temperatures are less than 60. So we're saying, okay, we're using this Atlanta box plot right here. And so if each set, again, make sure you're saying each section, each quartile, is about 25% of the data. And if you think back to that previous unit, what does of mean? If you find a percent of a number, of means multiply. Of means multiply. So we're doing 25% of, and let's see, it says less than 60. So less than 60. So let me get a different one here. Where is 60 at? Well, it's going to be right here. So we're saying anything less than degrees Fahrenheit. That's going to be from our Q1 down to our min. So it's all of this right here. So we know that, hey, that's that entire section. So that's going to be about 25% of those 12 months. So we're going to say 0.25 times those 12 months. That's going to be about 3 months. Again, we're talking. Again, make sure you're saying, because it said about the high temperature for each month. How many months are in a year? Still 12? Yes, very good. And so we take, again, one section of that is 25%. So of those 3 months, or excuse me, of those 12 months, only 3 of them are less than 6 degrees. I know. Last one. So let's see this. It says, all right, compare the average temperature in Atlanta and Orlando. And so we're going to use that by looking at the medians and the interquartile range. So let's see. Okay, can you tell me? Let's find our stack of cards. Can you help me out, please? I'll do a quick shuffle. And a little rotate. All right. Can you help us out, Christian, by chance? If you are looking at your 2 box plots down there, and you're looking at Atlanta, which is going to be this first one in here, what would be the median of that entire set? So what's the median for Atlanta? So we're going to say about 73. So that's that middle number right here. So we're going to say that's our median right here. So we can say our median, and then we can say for Atlanta is 73 degrees. Oh, I'm going to make sure write that right, 73 degrees. So again, we're saying, again, that middle number in the box is that median. So how about, you want some redemption, Christian? Want some redemption? Can you give me maybe the Orlando? Can you give me that median for Orlando? There it is. All right. So he said, hey, right in the middle of that box plot, that's 84 degrees. That is our median. All right. Thank you, Christian. So now let's see what would be our interquartile range for Atlanta. Can you help me out? Sure. Rhett, if we're looking at Atlanta first, again, we're doing our Q3, which is what? What's that far right end of the box? 80 what? It's going to be 84.5. There it is. And then what's going to be the far left end of that box? That's going to be 60. So now, again, you find the difference, and so we subtract those two, and so you get 24.5. That's going to be our interquartile range for Atlanta. So now let's say, similar to Christian, Rhett, do you want to get some redemption on that IQR? Excellent. So can you tell me what would be our end of the box, or our Q3 for Orlando? Okay, so let me write that down and say 90.5. And again, I'm subtracting it, Q3 minus Q1. So what would be our Q1 for Orlando? For Orlando. There you go. Always find your place on that map and on that box plot. Let me actually write that correctly as well. It's all good. We're all human. We all make mistakes, but we move on. So again, that's going to be about 14 degrees. So again, Orlando's interquartile range was 14 degrees, where Atlanta's was 24.5. I can assure you, I promise, it will be super simple. We will do more practice moving forward. Thank you, boys and girls. Have a good rest of the weekend.